Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The event will begin in 10 minutes. Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez prendre place. L'événement va débuter dans 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The event will begin in 5 minutes. Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez prendre place. L'événement va débuter dans 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The event is about to begin. Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez prendre place. L'événement est sur le point de commencer. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The event is about to begin. Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez prendre place. L'événement est sur le point de commencer.
Good afternoon, friends of the ocean, and welcome to the closing ceremony of IMPAC5, the 5th International Marine Protected Areas Congress. Bon après-midi, chers amis de l'océan, et bienvenue à cette cérémonie de clôture d'IMPAC5, le 5e congrès international sur les aires marines protégées. Nous sommes reconnaissants d'être rassemblés aujourd'hui sur les terres ancestrales des nations Musqueam, Squamish et Tsleil Waututh. We want to acknowledge how grateful we are to the host First Nations for welcoming us onto their traditional territories, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil Waututh. And we want to thank their representatives for being with us today. Je m'appelle Émilie Leclerc et je serai votre guide tout au long de cette cérémonie de clôture. My name is Emily Leclerc, and I'm going to be your MC for today's ceremony. Before we begin, please take a moment to turn off all audible alerts on your phones and other devices. Avant de commencer, veuillez prendre un moment pour éteindre les alertes ou sonneries de vos téléphones et appareils électroniques. J'ai maintenant le plaisir de vous présenter nos invités spéciaux. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our special guests, some of whom you'll have the great pleasure of hearing from during today's ceremony. Please welcome, accueillons chaleureusement, Councillor Brett Sparrow of the Musqueam Indian Band, Councillor Wilson Williams of Squamish Nation, Councillor Charlene Alec of the Tsleil Waututh Nation, the Honourable Joyce Murray, Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard, the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Environment and Climate Change Canada, Vice Admiral Angus Topshee, Commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, Mr. Ron Hallman, President and Chief Executive Officer, Parks Canada, Dr. Bruno Oberle, Director General of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, Ms. Sandra Schwartz, National Executive Director for the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, and Ms. Melissa White, Young Professional Representative. I also want to recognize our host organizations, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Parks Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and the Government of British Columbia. Without the commitment and unstinting support of these organizations, none of us would be here today. J'aimerais maintenant inviter au podium, I now invite to the podium, the Honourable Joyce Murray, Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard.
Good afternoon. Bonjour. It has been such a great pleasure to co-host the 5th International Marine Protected Areas Congress here on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish nations, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil Waututh. And so thank you to the nations for welcoming us into your territory. And I want to thank each of you for traveling from across the world to be here at IMPAC5. Ces derniers jours, des milliers de participants de plus de 123 pays ont travaillé ensemble en vue d'un objectif primordial, celui de protéger l'océan. And actually, in the view of this beautiful ocean that we are all working to protect. So I want to thank Indigenous peoples and First Nations who shared their perspectives, knowledge, and care for ecological stewardship. And I also want to thank the many young people who came here to IMPAC5 to learn, to contribute, and to make a difference. As the generation who are coming of age in the climate crisis, it's critical that you are part of the solution. Your ideas matter. And I want to thank you for your work and your dedication, your sense of purpose. The work you did here, the conversations you had, and the ideas that you were creating will change the world. It works that way. So I know this may be an overused phrase, but change is always possible. For decades, we as a global community, many of us, not all of us, ignored the impact our efforts were having on the ocean. And now in 2023, the landscape has changed. And with the world committing to protecting 30% of our lands and waters at COP15, and one of the key stewards of that outcome, I'm pleased to be, we'll be sharing the stage with later, Minister Guilbeault. It's clear that we do have momentum here at IMPAC5, and the reality is we cannot afford to wait. As the largest carbon sink that supports the health and livelihoods of billions of people, we must protect the oceans. We also shared the progress made here at home in Canada. Over the past few days, we announced Canada's first marine refuge in the Northern Shelf bioregion. We endorsed the plan to protect this vast area and took steps to establish the xʷməθkվəy Marine Protected Area, which protects over 133,000 square kilometers, making it the largest to date in Canada. Grâce à un partenariat significatif et à un travail sans relâche, vous avez tracé une voie claire visant à atteindre notre cible de 25 en 25, ce qui nous permettra de réussir à atteindre celle de 30 en 30. These measures are, of course, an essential step in the journey to protect the ocean ecosystems from damaging human activities and build a great greener future for us all. And this would not be possible without the Indigenous partners who play a critical role in this work. It's absolutely essential that these processes are Indigenous-led here in Canada and in many parts of the world. So I am incredibly excited to work with Indigenous partners to advance Indigenous-led protected and conserved areas on all three coasts and inland waters. Before closing the conference, I do want to acknowledge and thank again the three host nations, the province of British Columbia, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, who has been an inspiration to me and so many others for their hard work and purpose over many decades. And the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, also a national icon in Canada, for partnering with the Government of Canada to organize this incredible Congress. So I would also finally like to thank all of the staff with a special nod to the DFO team who helped make this conference a reality. Je tiens aussi à remercier tout le personnel qui a contribué à concrétiser cette conférence. Je sais que cela a pris des mois de travail acharné pour l'organiser et je pense que cela a vraiment porté ses fruits. Je vous remercie. Thank you.
Merci. Thank you, Minister Murray. And now it is my pleasure to invite the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Environment and Climate Change Canada, to speak to you.
Thank you very much, Emily. Merci beaucoup. Chers invités, représentants et représentantes autochtones, jeunes professionnels engagés, conférenciers, conférencières, porte-parole, bonjour, hello. We are immensely grateful for everything that you've done, and let us give a big thank to all of those who've supported the coordination and organization of this impactful Congress. I too would like to thank the host nations who are welcoming us onto their traditional lands, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil Waututh. Thank you very much for having us here. La protection d'air marine, yes, thank you. La protection d'air marine à l'échelle internationale est cruciale. 2 months ago, at COP15 in Montreal, Canada and the other 195 members of the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity reached an historic agreement to guide global action on nature by adopting the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The framework aims to safeguard the world's nature, halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, and put nature on a path to recovery by 2050. The Government of Canada made the commitment to effectively conserve and manage at least 30% of its coastal and marine areas by 2030, a target that's now been adopted by the global community. Our priority is to achieve an ecological representative, well-connected and equitably governed systems of marine protected areas and other effective conservation measures while recognizing Indigenous and traditional territories and practices. COP15 and IMPAC5 are important gatherings that will assist us in meeting these targets. And Canada is committed to continuing the momentum. IMPAC5, c'est le summum de la collaboration. C'est la rencontre du Canada et des Premières Nations, de la Colombie-Britannique, ainsi que de nombreux groupes écologistes comme la Société pour la nature et les parcs, en plus de jeunes professionnels, de leaders autochtones et d'experts des quatre coins du monde. Est-ce que vous aussi, vous trouvez ça prometteur pour la protection des océans? The stories you shared, the challenges and opportunities you clarified, the leadership you inspired, and the actions you suggested all will contribute to charting a course to protecting at least 30% of the planet's oceans as a legacy for our kids and grandkids. It will inspire our discussions tomorrow at the Leadership Forum. To borrow a biblical allusion, it parts the waters for nations to expand ocean protection. In Canada, our Prime Minister has directed Minister Murray and myself to work together to achieve the protection and conservation of 25% of Canada's marine and coastal areas by 2025 and at least 30% by 2030. A significant contribution is to come from Parks Canada, which is mandated to create, within 5 years, 10 new national marine conservation areas, representative of Canada's marine regions, and working with Indigenous leaders, achieve co-management agreements that respect the promise and principles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Early in my mandate as Minister, I had the privilege of seeing Indigenous leadership in action when I joined President Lempe of the Nunavut government in signing a Memorandum of Understanding that launched work and consultations on how to establish an Inuit protected area under Parks Canada's legislation. This is an historic first for Parks Canada, considering an Indigenous protected area from the get-go. Building on this and other examples, I was pleased to announce earlier this week a new marine conservation areas policy. It provides guidance on the effective and equitable management of NMCAs. It provides direction on the importance of Indigenous leadership, the well-being of coastal communities, and the priority of protecting marine ecosystems and biodiversity. Combined with the federal Marine Protected Area Standard also announced this week, these policies bring clarity on the management of NMCAs. I hope these actions will inspire others to strengthen their approach to marine conservation. I believe one of the key outcomes of this Congress is the clear message that marine conservation, including the creation and the effective management of marine protected areas, is a key undertaking required to address the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. And nowhere is this message more clear, more heartfelt, and more urgent than when it comes to the future of Indigenous communities and their continued reliance and connection to the lands and waters of their traditional territories. Our success to protect these oceans we share depends on an integrated approach that ensures the participation and engagement of the public, private and civil society leaders, as well as Indigenous peoples, scientists, academics, industry, marine professionals, youth, and other sectors of society. Global leaders have adopted the 30% target precisely because Indigenous leaders, youth, civil society has demanded that we take action. I urge you all to continue to advocate, to continue to exert leadership, and to share your stories and successes beyond this gathering. IMPAC5, c'est le plus important rassemblement sur les aires marines protégées que le Canada n'ait jamais reçu. Merci à vous toutes et tous d'avoir participé à ce succès et de continuer de surfer sur la vague. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, ministre Guilbeault. Voici maintenant une vidéo récapitulative d'IMPAC5. And now, a special treat, we have a video review of IMPAC5.
I want to invite into the room one of our oldest ancestors. It's the water. Tsleil Waututh people means people of this inlet. This is the inlet right here that we see out this window. And as you travel up it, that is the heartland of where we were born from.
Good day, everyone. We are children of Takaya. We're from Tsleil Waututh. Just like to give thanks and acknowledgement.
And the first beat is the same beat that we paddle to in our canoes. The song represents our ancestors coming in on a canoe. And when they get to where they're going, they have a celebration and the song picks up and it lifts their spirits in the skies.
Welcome to IMPAC5. So for the world to achieve our biodiversity goals on land and in the oceans, in the next 8 years we have some heavy lifting to do. We are here today because we know that it's possible.
First of all, I just want to commend the organizers for the increasing diversity that we're seeing that are here in the room, right? I hope that through the networks that are here, that different voices, younger and older and every age voices are here that haven't been with us in the past.
IMPAC5 has really made a concerted effort to integrate youth leadership and youth voices from the beginning with the establishment of the Young Professionals Committee with a strong focus on youth engagement in the program, the talks, the sessions here. Really not again as an afterthought, but something that's been central to the organizing from day one.
And the fact of bringing people together, that people are connected, that have the same vision, the same goal, but we are contributing in different ways, whether you're a scientist or you're an artist, you're a special planner, you're into artificial intelligence or big data. I think we all have different ways to contribute. And we have a very, very recent come together and adopted the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. That kind of sets the kind of a goal or a commitment that we have to protect 30% of our ocean.
Getting to 30% is going to be really hard, as is. So I think we need to, just support any initiative and be optimistic and be supportive of the optimistic, positive ideas that are coming out instead of focusing on the things that are wrong. Because there's a tendency to do that, right? To say, this is not enough, this is blah, blah, blah. Let's focus on the positive. You know, Martin Luther King didn't start his speech by saying, I have a nightmare. He told us what the dream was.
I'd like to see the laws and worldviews of Indigenous peoples embedded not only within their governing bodies, but within other governing bodies as well, so that they can work together to effectively reach the conservation targets that we all collectively have an interest in to ensure that we have a viable planet for all of the future generations that are to come.
I mean, we need meetings and the energy of people who come to IMPAC5 to help us do a better job at creating, maintaining marine protected areas. We need to learn to work better with Indigenous peoples, and I think while making sure that all of the right steps are taken, maybe we can try and see if we can do these projects faster.
There will be policies and there will be directions and there will be actionable items at the end of this conference that this is, hey, listen, governments, listen, provincial governments, listen, national governments, this is what you need to do over the next few years to really make a change.
We have to not only scale up the areas that we, like parks and reserves and whatever, that everybody gets it. We have to change our attitude and our individual ways about all of the ocean.
We have to be able to effectively manage these marine protected areas and identify what are the key biodiversity hotspots that we need to protect as well. We have to also start to have a constructive conversation on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction as well. I think these are two key areas that we need to focus on if we are going to reach the 30 by 30 goal.
If we don't then walk out the door and create new muscle memory, new instincts, new practices, new conservation practices that actually look to integrate with climate, that are just, that are inclusive, then nothing's going to change. So impact 5, success, each one of us walk out of here thinking, this is the one thing that I'm going to start with today.
As you know, to solve the ocean crisis, we need the support of everyone, everywhere. In that spirit, the IMPAC5 Ocean Festival engaged hundreds of school children and many thousands of local citizens in a celebration of love for the ocean and learning to care for it. Voici une vidéo du Festival de l'Océan d'IMPAC5. Watch this. Now, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the stage the Young Professional Committee. Please, you can come on stage. J'aimerais maintenant inviter sur scène le comité des jeunes professionnels de l'IMPAC5. Speaking on their behalf, please welcome, accueillons chaleureusement, Miss Melissa White.
Anin, Buju, Makosiana Kwan Indigenous, Biju Nindundem, Wajishkanigam Indunjaba. Translated, my name is Little Bear Cloud, and my English given name is Mel White. I am from Wajishkanigam Nation, a small Anishinaabe community in the central part of Turtle Island, here in North America. I also shared that I'm from the Lynx clan. As First Nations people, our clan systems pre-contact were intricate and the foundation of our kinship. They gave us important roles in our societies. It was our xʷməthkվəy, the great earth spirit, that gave us our duties and responsibilities to protect, care for, and respect the land and all of its inhabitants. These inherent duties were to last forever, and they live within all of us as Anishinaabe people. I would like to first acknowledge the elders, knowledge keepers, leadership, matriarchs, and sacred items in this building with us. Without the strength, knowledge, and wisdom of those who have walked the earth before us, teaching us, we would not be here. On behalf of the Young Professionals Committee, I would like to extend our most sincere gratitude to the 3 host nations, Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil Waututh, for welcoming us with open arms on their traditional ancestral lands. The welcomes and protocols I've witnessed during the Congress enabled us to exchange information, make connections, and strive for collective ambition. The collective ambition to protect life's most precious resource, water. Nibih in my language means water, and water is life. My First Nation is a freshwater nation, and my experiences and teachings from my elders show me that water connects us all. From the streams, the rivers, and the oceans, regardless of its composition, we're surrounded by water. We learn from water, and because of this, we are all ocean people. When we are in our life giver's womb, where each and every single one of us come from, water cradles us, protects us, helps us grow. Water takes care of us, and water teaches us. My relationship to water and the more than human beings who reside under our waters started when I was a very young child, playing on the shores of my home community. I became very good at catching minnows and other small creatures I would come across. My curiosity eventually led me to dissecting one of my captures, and with probably too much excitement, I brought it to my kokam, my grandmother. It was in this moment she taught me that no matter how small a spirit may be, we are all interconnected. The minnow feeds the fish feeds the eagle, and the eagle dies and feeds the earth, and the cycle continues. She told me to bring the minnow back to the water and apologize to it. It was then when my special connection to our non-human beings began. Our earth is interconnected, and we must protect the gifts that our Mother Earth has given us. These small actions and experiences of our connection to water, ocean, and its ecosystems can lead to collective ambition, which can lead to collective courage, action, and hope. We now realize that we are stronger together. I want to share the importance of being mindful of youth perspectives, thoughts, ideas, and visions. I've learned this week that we still face many challenges. Lack of representation, lack of meaningful inclusion. We lack face of legitimacy. We experience imposter syndrome, self-doubt, eco and climate anxiety. Many young people who would have been in this room with us faced issues of accessibility, funding, and an inability to acquire a travel visa to even make it here. Our young Indigenous people are facing intergenerational trauma due to the colonization and the attempted mass genocide of our people. We are working to revitalize our languages and ways of knowing. We are still finding ourselves, all while trying to navigate a colonial structure that has been pressed upon us, along with everything else that comes with being a young person trying to navigate this life. These issues we face exacerbate the equity and diversity problems in environmental and ocean conservation. We are not only here to contribute, but to share our unique knowledge and experiences as young people that we only know that we have. Without the voices of young people, we will not succeed. Without the traditional and ingrained knowledge of Indigenous people, we will not succeed. However, I know in my heart that we're all different from when we first arrived at IMPAC5. We have experienced difficult yet meaningful conversations, conversations that have led us here, as we are now, collectively standing together to save our oceans and ultimately ourselves. We have one mother, Mother Earth, and water flows through her like blood, keeping her alive. I know we are scared, but you can admit it. We have each other. Working together gives us that courage. It is through the reciprocal relationship with water and connections that we form with each other that will drive innovative, effective, and equitable conversation and conservation actions to save her. Standing here with my new relatives, my new siblings from Mother Earth, and with all of you has given me so much hope. But we have so much more to do to balance our relationship with all of creation. We stand here, a newly unified kinship at IMPAC5, knowing and sharing with each other one of our biggest lessons I think we've all learned. Water heals us. It's been so good to gather, to talk, to cry, to discuss solutions and learn about the water and its healing abilities. And it's through these connections that we're able once again to rehabilitate that connection within ourselves. I encourage all of you to keep strengthening that connection, leaving IMPAC5 and the traditional lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil Waututh. If we do this, I know we can move forward. I know we can save our oceans. Gitchimigwich, thank you, all my relations.
Un grand merci à Miss Melissa White et à notre comité des jeunes professionnels de l'IMPAC5. A big thank you to our young professional committee, and a special thank you to Miss Melissa White for these very inspiring words. J'aimerais maintenant inviter, please welcome, Miss Sandra Schwartz, National Executive Director of the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, the organization responsible for bringing IMPAC5 to Vancouver and a key partner in this Congress. Welcome back. Welcome back.
So at the opening, the organizers of the opening and now the closing put me behind exceptional performances. So once again, I'm here to bore all of you because I don't know how one follows that incredible group of young people who speak from the heart. I spent a little bit of time at the ocean yesterday, walking along the seawall, and then sat down at the beach, just looking out into the bay and seeing all the huge ships, container ships coming into the bay, and dabbled my fingers in the water because every ocean or body of water I ever approach, I make sure I at least touch. And so thank you, Mel, for reminding us that the water flows through us and that it heals us, because that's exactly why I went to the ocean yesterday, was just because I needed a little bit of healing power. So my name's Sandra Schwartz. I'm the National Executive Director of the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, which is also known as CPAWS. Et en français, c'est la Société pour la Nature et les Parcs du Canada. Un grand merci à toutes et à tous d'être ici avec nous. And thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us. I think for many of us, it's likely a little bittersweet to be gathering at the closing of this event. It just seemed like it started just a few days ago, and there's been friendships forged, new alliances, and so forth. So I'd once again like to express my sincere appreciation and thanks to the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil Waututh nations for welcoming us onto their traditional territories for this conference over the last several days. At the opening ceremony, I reflected on CPAW's history with IMPAC5 and in ocean conservation. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary this year, and our work has never been so important. IMPAC5 has brought together leaders in marine conservation from around the world to chart a course to protect at least 30% of the global ocean by 2030. And I think that we can agree over this past week, we've made progress. We now also have more clarity on exactly how to achieve this crucial protection for the global ocean. In bringing IMPAC5 to Vancouver, it was our hope as an organization that this Congress would help motivate Canada to come forward with strong and ambitious announcements and actions. And I am pleased to report that we believe that these aspirations were realized. There have been announcements on progress on new marine protected areas and MPA networks here in British Columbia, a new federal policy for national marine conservation areas, and there was today's promising announcement of Canada's pathway to 25% of ocean protection by 2025 and 30% by 2030, as well as new guidance to implement minimum protection standards for all new federal MPAs. There's no question that our planet is moving toward an uncertain future. There's precipitous declines in marine biodiversity, and certainly we see regularly now, unfortunately, impacts of climate change. We can't keep moving action down the road. Frankly, we need to roll up our sleeves now, and we need to continue to drive forward on this important work. And so the announcements over the past few days, I think, and I think our organization and many of us in the room would agree, that it does set us on the course toward a healthy and resilient ocean, and thus a healthy and resilient future for humans and for all of the creatures that we share this planet with. Producing an international event of this magnitude does require many partners to work together. So I'd very much like to extend our gratitude as an organization to the Government of Canada, with special acknowledgement of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard, Parks Canada, and of course, Environment and Climate Change Canada. The host nations, Musqueam, Tsleil Waututh, and Squamish, and the members of the Indigenous Working Group, the International Union of Conservation for Nature, the IMPAC5 Secretariat and Congress Planning Committee, and the Province of British Columbia and the City of Vancouver for the time, effort, and spaces to ensure the success of IMPAC5. I'd also like to pay special recognition to the Indigenous Working Group and Young Professionals Committee, whose partnership on IMPAC5, in our humble opinion, did elevate our collective Congress experience and ensured that key voices are represented and expert knowledge is woven into the marine protection strategies that will sustain the global ocean for future generations. And I'd be remiss if I didn't especially thank my incredible team at CPAWS, both our national staff as well as our chapter folks who, because of their efforts, helped to make this Congress possible and helped to fulfill our role as a key partner and co-host of IMPAC5. And finally, of course, thank you to all of you, the delegates, participants, and special guests who have come from all over the world to be here with us. IMPAC5 is a turning point for the ocean. We have identified next steps on how we will achieve 30% protection by 2030. And we've demonstrated that when we come together as ocean stewards, advocates, and stakeholders, we learn from each other and strengthen the ways by which we move forward on implementation of effective marine protected areas. So we're leaving IMPAC5 with new ocean allies and a renewed sense of hope that heartens us to continue to fight to strongly protect blue nature and ensure a bright blue future for the ocean. And I certainly hope that for all of you, that you are leaving this Congress with that hope intact. And so as we all make our way home, I do hope that you take some time to reflect on what we achieved together here in Vancouver. And I also hope that you'll take the lessons learned to keep your passion for marine protection strong. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Un grand merci. Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Accueillons maintenant, and now please welcome Dr. Bruno Oberli, Director General of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Merci à vous.
Honorable Minister Murray, Minister Guilbeault, Excellencies, distinguished participants, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to be here with you today and to address this sea of committed champions of ocean conservation. IMPAC5 has allowed marine conservation practitioners scientists, policymakers, civil society, indigenous people, youth and innovators to meet and to share knowledge and experience, to strengthen effort for the establishment and management of protected and conserved areas, and to recognize and support the custodians of the ocean to meet the many challenges we face. IMPAC5 is the first international gathering of the ocean community since the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, an historical package of goals and targets critical to addressing the dangerous loss of biodiversity and restoring natural ecosystem by 2030. As you have been discussing here, the Global Biodiversity Framework calls for effective conservation and management of at least 20% of the world's lands, inland waters, coastal waters, and oceans, with emphasis on areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem functioning and services. It particularly recognizes indigenous and traditional territories and practices. The first stop on the voyage from Montreal has brought us to Vancouver, where we have gathered to strengthen and advance marine protection. In particular, we have heard from all of you that it is not just about what we conserve, but how we do it, that will ensure a healthy ocean and a human well-being. The ocean, don't forget it, represents over 90% of the living space on this planet. And protecting the ocean must be our top priority. To quote a few words from Amanda Gorman's Ode to the Ocean, "The sea is a restless, strong collective of many pieces. So are we. The ocean can recover, and so will we. Let us not divide the tides, but discover all they have to teach us." IUCN and IUCN WPCA are proud to be a co-convener of this Congress with the Government of Canada, and we are committed to working with all of you to achieve the ambitions arising from this Congress. We are particularly delighted to have heard of the many commitments made towards ocean conservation, and we thank Canada especially for the generous contribution of $30 million towards building the Great Blue Wall in the Western Indian Ocean. IMPAC has come a long way since IMPAC1, demonstrated by the increased diversity of participants at this Congress and the scope and depth of discussions, including the economic and social dimensions of ocean conservation. We have also witnessed the strong voices and leadership of indigenous peoples, women and youth at this Congress, and the way in which people identify with the ocean as their home and their future. IUCN would like to thank the host First Nations, together with the province of British Columbia, the Government of Canada, and the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society for organizing this event. IUCN is particularly proud to contribute, together with those nations and partners, in future for the continuation of this proud tradition. We will learn from what we have experienced here at IMPAC5, and we will convey all of these experiences to the host of IMPAC6. Thank you all for your time, energy, dedication and leadership, and I wish all a safe return home. Bon voyage, jusqu'à on va se rencontrer à nouveau.
Remain on stage, actually. Thank you. Un grand merci. Thank you to Dr. Oberle. I would now like to invite Ministers Guilbeault and Murray to join you on stage while I share a little story. Many of you will have seen the Sacred Journey exhibit outside this hall or visited the full experience at Science World. That exhibit includes the Tsλxwx legend of a magic paddle which, with one stroke, can take you anywhere in the world. On Sunday, keynote speaker Michael Vey himself from Tsλxwx Nation ended his talk by telling us that we're all in the same canoe, that we all need to pick up our paddles and get to work to save the ocean. Yesterday, Hinano Teavi Murphy told us we need to paddle in unison to reset the mind of humanity for a clean and healthy ocean. Our lives depend on it. Inspired by thoughts such as these, IMPAC commissioned the paddler in residence at Sacred Journey to carve a magic paddle that can take the IMPAC5 Congress anywhere in the world. By Salish artist and carver, Mr. Gary Sheena, this yellow cedar paddle, entitled The Journey, features traditional representations of salmon because of the incredible journey that is the life of a salmon, and is inlaid with pieces of abalone shell. Inscribed on the back of the paddles are the dates and host cities of the first 5 IMPAC Congresses. We hope to see many other cities added to the paddle in the years to come. Ministers, would you please come forward to make the special announcement?
Yeah. So I would like to recognize New Zealand and Senegal, the 2 finalists, as well as all of the other countries that submitted excellent proposals to host IMPAC6. The IUCN International Steering Committee, comprised of former IMPAC hosts and under the guidance of the IUCN Ocean Team, went through an extensive selection process. I know it was very difficult to choose. They have identified Senegal as the host for IMPAC6. J'aimerais inviter les représentants du Sénégal à me rejoindre sur scène. Nous offrons nos sincères félicitations au Sénégal. Please accept this paddle as a symbol of our collective efforts towards ocean conservation.
What a beautiful paddle! Quelle belle pagaie! Un grand merci aux représentants du Sénégal et aux ministres Guilbeault et Murray, and to Dr. Oberle. Thank you very much. Thank you. Merci. Thank you. Before we proceed, we also want to thank nous aimerions remercier, and please stand or wave when I name you, our professional conference organizers, MCI, our audio-visual magicians, Encore, the amazing team here at the Vancouver Convention Center, and of course, I'm sure everyone enjoyed the food here this week, our catering team. Thank you so much. I think next we have representatives from our host First Nations. Okay. Okay, perfect. J'aimerais maintenant inviter les représentants des nations Musqueam, Squamish et Tsleil Waututh à venir sur scène. Please join me in welcoming to the stage representatives of our host First Nations. But before we do that, do we have a special announcement? A special message? We have a very special message.
Before we do that, I would like to ask all of the IMPAC5 Secretariat staff to rise, please, because you were behind the scenes making this all work. So the Secretariat's staff, please rise for a brief acknowledgement. So next, I would like to ask all of the Government of Canada staff who helped make this event possible to also rise. And lastly, the staff and support people for the other co-organizers of the conference, if you would also please rise to receive your acknowledgement. So much work, so well done. Thank you. Merci.
It takes a village. Thank you so much, everyone. And now, j'aimerais inviter les représentants des nations Musqueam, Squamish et Tsleil Waututh à venir sur scène. Please join me in welcoming to the stage representatives of our host First Nations, Councillor Brett Sparrow of the Musqueam Indian Band, Councillors Wilson Williams of Squamish Nation, and Councillor Charlene Alec of Tsleil Waututh Nation. They will lead the final part of our ceremony today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to begin by formally again welcoming all of you here to the unceded and traditional territory here of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil Waututh peoples here in Vancouver, BC. My name is Brett Sparrow. I'm an elected councillor for the Musqueam Indian Band. And I just want to begin by just really giving thanks to everyone, the leaders in the room, decision makers, advisors, facilitators, everyone involved to make this event happen, for doing your part to strengthen conservation of marine life and its biodiversity, and to protect the cultural heritage of our oceans. I'd also like to give thanks to the week's participants, in particular for listening and learning about our country and this province's rich diversity of Indigenous peoples who have been stewards of this land since time immemorial. And before I move on, with that in mind, I also want to just quickly acknowledge my friend xວməθkվəy for always stepping up to the call to share a little bit about who we are and where we come from. xວməθkվəy, my friend John Stogan, is going to be singing a song and drumming for us here today. But before we move to that part of the ceremony, I was actually at a youth forum today at Science World. It was called the Leaders for Sustainable Futures, and it was quite sweet. It was grade 5 to 8 students, so about 10 to 13 years old, talking about climate change. And although they weren't necessarily talking about water and marine life specifically, I'm sure they would share that same passion to have that conversation. But I want to start with a bit of a funny story about how inspired and how much of a wake-up call it was for us to understand that they are young leaders today. And I won't name the school to throw them under the bus, but there was 3 grade 8 students who did an amazing presentation, about 15-minute long presentation about how they led their school's climate action strategy plan. And one of the students threw under the bus their teachers by saying the teacher who was responsible for that action plan actually left the school, and they didn't have the right succession plan to transition those responsibilities, and the students just straight up said they neglected their responsibilities and the students had to step up to the plate. But it came in a way that brought light, fun to it, and it brought all of us to the same reaction. We all laughed, and you could see how heartwarmed they were to be able to share their project, and it was a phenomenal project. They completely redesigned their recycling system, and all the way down to they started creating their own soil and everything, and sort of donating it to different food charities who would grow their own food and help the homeless. So it impacted well beyond their school. And the reason I wanted to share that story was it opened my eyes not only to the shared responsibilities for conservation amongst all life and all peoples who rely on healthy oceans, but to understand the shared responsibility amongst all generations of leaders, even as young as 10 years old. And these leaders include Indigenous and non-Indigenous folks. There was a lot of Indigenous students there, but it was a conference or a forum for all the students of local communities here in BC. Another reason I wanted to mention that story was because before we know it, one of those kids in that forum could be one of those individuals sitting in this row right here as one of the IMPAC5 Young Professionals Committee. And I just want to pause for a second there and thank the committee for your heartwarming words. I could feel the emotion. I could feel the emotion while you're all standing there together, and I think that was what I was trying to get at with my remarks, is that ability to understand core values that we hold together, to collaborate, to stand together, and to work collectively to achieve our goals. And I know that spirit is captured here in this event. And not only that, Musqueam also believe in these values of shared responsibility beyond even ocean conservation, in our kinship ties, like you said as well, amongst local First Nations communities. My family behind me amplifies our willingness to work together for the betterment of all peoples who now call Vancouver home. I just want to close off by saying, again, thank you, and I wish all of our visitors who traveled far and from wherever you came from in the world, just want to say safe travels home. And after our remarks, we're going to send you all off in a good way, and we'll turn the floor over to our cultural singers and dancers afterwards. Thank you.
Squall. Thank you. Thank you, brother. xʷməthkʷəy. Yuan hath and Squallowin. Sgsmåchtin xʷməthkʷəy. Sgsmåchtin Aslahan o'chmeoch. Yuquapsam o'chmeoch. Good day, good evening, everybody. I come here in a good way. It's an honor to be in front of you once again, to be a part of the beginning of IMPAC5 here at the closing. As we pass the paddle along to Senegal and prepare the journey, a stronger journey to get to the protection of 30% of the ocean by 2030. It will take not only global conversations, global intelligence, or global governments to come together. It will be the respect of Indigenous peoples that are connected to the respective global ocean to share and embrace and unite with the world to achieve goals such as this. I too was emotional witnessing the Youth Professionals Committee, and I'd like to hold up Melissa, our Slanite Stomsh, we recognize as a woman warrior in our language, for using her voice. You are all part of a witness today in being a part of the smoke signal. We use smoke signal as bringing back to your respective homes at the dinner table to share what you have witnessed, how far we've come, and reflect back on this part of history which will help us move forward. I'm hoping, and I know you did, experience, and I hope we overwhelmed you with good food, good connections. I hope we touched all 5 senses of your experience here in Vancouver, which is a beautiful place. Musqueam. It's the journey we take in our lives that we keep our heads high of hope. Everyone in the room is a role model today, and when they go home to their children or their families to help explore what we need for tomorrow. And for this, I hold up our youth again, our youth performers in the next generations, because it's our duty to ensure we provide them the right guidance and curriculum and intelligence. We need the creativity in order to solve the world's issues, and it takes us to unite. And I'd like to acknowledge all the leaders in the room, the ministers, all the leaders that are going back and traveling. May you have a safe journey. And it's my pleasure to acknowledge all of you respectfully in such beautiful territories that are near and dear to our hearts. I'm not here to provide lip service. I'm here as a resident from the territories. My ancestral name I shared earlier, Sgsmåkten, is connected to the water and to the lands up in the Squamish River, our village of xʷməthkվəy. I come here as a messenger from our ancestors and from our leaders of today to help enlighten you, but empower you. I thank you for the time to be able to share the words. And for us, I look forward to the conversations and look forward to the relationships we are building as a world. And I'd like to hold up my brother who shared, I was right in front of him, sharing the words from his teachings and his culture, I believe from New Zealand, where he stood up and spoke. And that pride May you never lose it. Chinquin Mintomi, Yosiam.
Xວម៉ែθkվəy, Siemen Siaya, Tsimtalat, Quanasqui, Talitsin at Tsleil Waututh, East Allotamata Chiam. Oh, ho, 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 hulo, hey, ah, hey. Just asking my grandmothers and grandfathers of the territory to release you and to call yourself back as we close our Congress today. Just calling yourself back because you see all these chairs, half of this room is filled, but half of them are empty. And in our mind, they're not empty, they're our ancestors. They're what guided you to be here today. They're what guided us to hold this space. They're what gives us that strength to do the work that we do, to speak when we need to speak. And before you all go home, my wish and my encouragement to you all, even if you live in Vancouver or within BC, to visit the water, touch the water, leave some of your good medicine, some of your good work with her. I plead you, she needs that. She needs your good words and your good thoughts. And take what you need. Take some of her strength back home with you. Where that paddle dipped into the water here in our sailor seas, take some of that back home with you. Rise like the tides. Turn into that big swell and turn into that giant mass amount of movement that she knows how to do. Turn into that strength when there's obstacles in front of her. She knows how to go through it. Take that medicine back home with you, but as well in the work that you do. And I know a lot of great work has happened here this week, just witnessing some of the powerful conversations, relationship building, and workshops, and conversations. Please take some home and also leave some with our dear water here. Just watching the week unfold and all of the movement that has happened within this conference and seeing the young professionals. I have a young 7-month grandson. His name is Tayash. It's Orca in his father's language. I have an 11-year-old granddaughter, xʷməthkվəy, and she's young Orca girl. To see the young professionals hold strong, my future is bright for our grandchildren. Hang on to that. And I encourage everyone to share what you have learned and saw and spoke about. Bring that back home and be that newspaper. Share what you've gathered here and tell somebody who doesn't know about IMPAC5, who doesn't know about CPAWS or the wilderness parks. Share it with somebody. Be that messenger. We can only do this, and I've heard it at the beginning of the conference and today. We couldn't do this alone. We can't do it alone. Yes, we will use our voices, we will use our medicines, but we need partners like each and every one of you in this room. So with that, I'll turn the floor open and just raise my hands to everybody. Thank you so much. Xວម៉ែથkվəy, turn it over to our drummers.
Merci.
Oh
Un grand merci, a big thank you to the representatives of our host First Nations for these inspiring words and beautiful performances. Thank you so much. Thank you. We all depend on water. Water connects us all. We all came here from all parts of this blue planet for the same purpose, to take a stand for what we all have in common, the global ocean, on which all life depends. Soon you're going to go back, we're all going to go back to our respective communities, our respective lives, our respective homes, carrying this message of ocean conservation with us, to bring an urgent call to action to protect blue nature. We're not alone. And this room, with all of you, is proof of that. Now, I don't know about you, but I had a lot of fun doing the wave in the opening ceremony. And to wave goodbye to the IMPAC5 Congress, I propose we do it again. We're gonna do one big giant wave, and after that, feel free to stand and move and go about the rest of your day, because it's gonna be the end of our closing ceremony. Like water, you're gonna go back home, but this wave goodbye will help you remember in your body the movement of change happening, with all of us standing up for ocean conservation. So like we did in the opening ceremony, we're going to start on this end of the room with people touching the water. This time we don't have a band, so feel free to vocalize. The wave is going to hit this wall, it's going to bounce back and go back to the global ocean. Please count down with me in any language you'd like. Put your voices together. We're going to put all bodies together, and we are, dear friends of the ocean, going to wave goodbye. I'm extremely excited for this moment. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Woo! And it's bouncing. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
The ocean gives us much. It provides for us, protects us, thrills us, and it unites us. Un océan sain signifie un avenir sain. Our global ocean requires a global effort. Inspired by the wisdom and leadership of indigenous people who have lived in harmony with the ocean since time immemorial. Accelerated by innovation and change, and empowered by the next generation of stewards, conservationists, and scientists. Le Canada des nations aux vues similaires ouvre la voie en élargissant un réseau mondial d'aires marines protégées, durables et résilientes.
By 2030, we must halt and reverse biodiversity loss. Le Canada fait des progrès comme jamais auparavant dans son engagement à protéger 25% de nos terres et 25% de nos cours d'eau d'ici 2025 et 30% d'ici 2030.
By safeguarding biodiversity, by addressing the climate crisis,
good morning, everybody.
And by advancing the blue economy. Today we come together to take a stand, to protect our ocean. Thank you for being part of IMPAC5.